The following podcast is scheduled for one fall.
It's almost time for a new chapter of GeeK KetchUp to start. But before it does, Chris and I wanted to take a moment to send our love and appreciation out to all of you for choosing to hang out with us. If you enjoy GeeK KetchUp, then make sure to slam that subscribe button and help us level up the show by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform.
You can also find us on social media to get updates on all things GK, interact directly with us, and content from the world of geekery. GeeK KetchUp Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, at GeeK KetchUp Pod on Instagram and Twitter, links to all of which can be found in the show notes below and on our website, geekketchuppodcast.com.
If you'd like to support the show, there's even links to our Square shop where you can find official GK merchandise like shirts and stickers. And Patreon if extra content is your thing. Above all, though, the absolute best thing you can do is spread the love for the world of geekery by sharing the GeeK KetchUp podcast with your friends and family.
Now get ready to enjoy today's show, and as always, remember to stay saucy.
If it's nerdy, we're into it. Gaming, movies, television, wrestling, comics, whatever. We are Kyle Eckert and Chris Heck, two lifelong friends with a passion for the world of geekery.
And this is the GeeK KetchUp Podcast.
Welcome back, GeeK KetchUp family. I'm Chris Heck.
And I'm Kyle Eckert.
Season 3 continues on, and today we are back with Chapter 44. For this one, we are going to be trying out a new topic that Kyle and I are excited about, where we dive into particular pieces of pop culture that had large impacts on our development into the geeks we are today. For Kyle and I, one of those things is the 1991 movie Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, and we'll be getting into that in just a little bit. Before we do, though, we want to take a few moments to catch up on some of the fun things that we've been geeking out on lately. So Kyle, you've had a whole bunch going on over the last few weeks, but what has had you really geeking out?
It's true. Between the bees in the wall in my house and new video games and new everything, but the latest addition to the house after many years of asking for one, our family has finally brought a dog into our house. We brought little Zeus, and I say little. He is not little at all. He is a 95-pound Rottweiler, 6 years old, but we did, in fact, get a dog at my house, and his name is Zeus, and he is just amazing.
He looks like a cuddly bear.
He is. That is exactly what he is. We adopted him, and in his adoption papers, they said he is less god of the sky, more giant marshmallow, and that could not be more true. He's just a big old cuddly bug. Like, of course, he is a Rottweiler. He's 6 years old. He's got some height and some weight to him, and he looks intimidating because, naturally, Rottweilers, they have that firm face, and so he looks a little intimidating, but as soon as you offer him up a treat or go to give him some pets, he's just a big old cuddle bug. He'll lean right into you and just wants to be around you and have him pat his head. So
that's the best.
It's very, very exciting for us. Like I said, Taylor has been wanting a dog for a long time. I've been wanting a dog for a long time. But between renting and being in places that don't allow dogs, and then, of course, we moved into the new home, we wanted to get established here before introducing anything new to the house. But we've been here a year, and we found him at a shelter in D.C., seemed like a good fit, and brought him home. He's at this point, at recording, he's been here for a little over 2 weeks.
Nice, yeah. They keep you on your toes. They kind of make you adjust your schedule. There's a little bit that has to change with them, but all in all, they're always a good addition. We're big dog folks, so I was happy to see that we've got another dog joining the GeeK KetchUp family.
Indeed. And I can certainly say the schedule has changed a little bit. And we prepped some of that because over the past year, we've dog sat a few folks, dogs, and had them stay here. So you find all right, what would the rhythm be like? Waking up, because you got to wake up early, you got to feed them, you got to do all that good stuff. And we felt comfortable that we were ready for that. And I'm still teleworking to some extent with my job. So we're like, okay, well, there's some opportunity there to have him transition into the home.
Sure.
But yeah, it's great just having him around, and he likes, like I say, he likes to come up to you, lean on you a little bit, and just get pats and just be real nice with you.
Is he a lap dog, or does he think he's a lap dog?
A little bit to some extent. Like he doesn't realize his full weight and size when he's leaning on you when he wants those pets. Like, but he doesn't jump up into your lap or anything like that. He doesn't try to do that. But when you go to start petting him and he starts leaning on you, or if like you sit down on the ground and you kind of like get in his face and pet him a little bit and just maybe play, I don't think he realizes his size and he'll like barrel you over.
Yeah. See, Link is 95 to 100 pounds, but he thinks he's 12, and he will try and lay on you no matter where you are, so.
Oh, yeah. No, he doesn't quite do that. Like, and well, even if Zeus did do that, it would be so much weight because he's very top heavy.
Oh, yeah.
The shelter said that he's a mix. We don't see much mix in him. He's almost pure Rottweiler. But he's got like this, if he were a mix, he's got this like big barrel chest that is very Rottweiler. And then his hips are kind of thinner. So there's a touch of lab there, but we're not 100% sure. Like coloring
he
and
skips leg day.
Yeah, and he skips legs. That's the joke. That was like the joke the first week we brought him home. He's just a bodybuilder that skips leg day. He's all chest and shoulders and head.
Yeah.
And then he's got this teeny little waist. But he's been a lot of fun. He's certainly terrorized the rabbits in our backyard that were living there, and he's just been just a nice addition to the home when you come home from work and he gives you the tail wiggles and just excited to see you. That something about a dog or an animal in the home in general, because cats, people feel this way about cats or whatever their pets are. They give you just this nice little shot of adrenaline when you come home from work, well, especially when you need it.
Yeah. Well, and it just changes the dynamic too, because you get used to living with somebody else, like significant other, whatever. So when they're gone on a trip or just whatever it may be, coming back and still having your buddy, having the animals is it just changes everything.
For sure. And he certainly got me out and walking because, we're walking every day now. And not to say I wasn't working out, but now it's like a committed. Sure. I'm not just, he's a workout buddy. He's keeping me committed to the plan. So it's pretty cool. And we are very happy to have him here. It's exciting. And we're only 2 weeks in. So I'm sure I'll have future dog stories where maybe something gets broken or chewed because that just comes with the territory.
Yeah, especially with the biggins.
Oh, yeah, the slobber. And that actually right there has been the funniest change for me is like stepping in something wet.
Oh, yeah.
Around the house. It just is now commonplace because you like in the kitchen where his food bowls are, like he's got big jaws. And when he drinks water, he slops a little bit and he drools a little bit. Yep. So you no longer, like before, you'd step in something wet and be like, all right, who spilt something?
Yeah.
And now you step in something wet and you're like, it's just dog drool.
And now you understand why in my house full of hardwood floors, we have little rugs everywhere. Yeah. Everywhere. Get tired of like coming out and just hitting a pool of slobber and like almost tearing an ACL.
Right.
Because you just go sliding across the wood.
Like a banana peel. Just
yeah, exactly.
That is a good idea. That we're going to make some changes to the layout of our kitchen and like putting things down. We've gotten by because he came home so quickly. By the time we put in the adoption papers to bring him home was only 7 days. It was wild how fast it happened.
Yeah.
Just the nature of shelters right now. Animal shelters are looking for homes. And so we got him home. So we went out, we had like an emergency night, went out like, let's buy everything we need. And you got to get the bowls, you got to get the food, you got to get this, you got to get that. And some things were like, all right, well, we can hold off and maybe just throw down a towel for now. But some more permanent mats are certainly coming in our future.
Yeah. Well, some stuff you just don't know until you get the actual animal. They're all so different. So yeah, some of it's just got to be reactionary once you learn all the quirks and nuances about the specific dogs. So
yeah, like toys and stuff. I think he chewed up a baseball on his first like day. I was like, oh, he likes to chew on the baseball. That's fine until we can get him a permanent toy. And then 4 hours later, that baseball was gone. I was like, all right, let's go get him a rough and tough toy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, that has been the big news in my house. There's a few other things I'm sure that are going on, but I want to pass it back over to you and find out what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've been geeking on has been Tales of Arise.
Okay, yeah.
And to me, it's been like surprise game of the year.
Nice.
So it came out just a couple of weeks ago on Xbox and PlayStation and everything. And honestly, I'm not real sure how the Tales series has like escaped my purview over all the years, because it goes back to, I think, the 16-bit or maybe even 8-bit age.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's been around for a long time from what I've read now, but it just wasn't really something that I was familiar with. You know, maybe I had seen one here or there, didn't catch that it was like all like a Tales of series, you know, or whatever it may be, but
Yeah.
came across the demo for Tales of Arise in the Xbox store a couple months back, just randomly, and I was like, okay, JRPG, looked like it had some good graphics, so I downloaded it, played it, and just loved the combat.
Nice.
And so didn't really read anything leading up to game release, didn't watch anything. I kind of went in blind, you know, like old school back in the day where you just have to like
yeah.
see a magazine picture and be like, that game looks cool.
Yeah.
But I went in blind with it, and I am really, really enjoying it. You know, the story and the styling has been really good. It gives me really strong vibes of back in the day playing a Final Fantasy or some of those other random RPGs that we would get, not knowing a whole lot about what they were going to be like.
Yeah.
But strong story, good characters. The game seems well built, very large world. I mean, I can't praise it enough. You know, good mechanics for the leveling up system, the crafting system, cooking, fishing.
Yeah.
You know, you've kind of got everything in there. And it's a JRPG.
Okay.
So you get some of those types of stylings that you get with those. And it's got instance combat.
Yeah.
But what is really cool is it's not turn-based. It's live action. So it's got
Okay.
a little bit of that like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy 15 feel.
Yeah.
But you're going into these instances that you can kind of choose in a lot of, you know, situations whether or not you're going to fight, because you can see the enemies on the world.
Yeah.
And you have to touch them.
To touch them. And then it takes you into the turn base.
No. It takes you into a live action combat. It just takes you into an instance. Like,
it takes you in an instance. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, and in this case, it turns into a turn base, but like Paper Mario,
kind of.
where you have to like touch a Goomba and then that takes you into a battle. But if you want to just hop over that Goomba and avoid it, you can.
Yeah, and there's definitely certain enemies, because it's just meant to be like you can't escape, you know, avoid them if you want to progress. But especially once you've kind of gone through an area or you're just exploring, like there definitely are, you can kind of choose how much you want to fight.
Yeah.
So it has that feel of the JRPG, you know, from that standpoint.
That's cool.
All in all, I mean, the combat is fantastic. Lots of combos that you use to fight versus, I mean, it's a little button mashy, but also not, because you do have to kind of time it a little bit to get the combos to flow.
Sure.
I've got 6 characters on my team right now. I think maybe it goes up to 8, but I'm only about 70-80% through the game. And that's kind of cool, because you kind of choose your core team of 4.
Okay.
But you actually have access to everybody pretty much all the time. And so you can bounce between them. You know, you can have your main character and then swap to other characters, and you are playing them, you know, 100%.
Oh, nice.
And doing everything. The AI will play them if you're not on them, essentially. So it's got that like Marvel Ultimate Alliance type deal.
Yeah. It actually sounds a lot like Secret of Mana.
Secret of Mana, yeah.
Yeah, that's how Secret of Mana played. I don't think you could bop from character to character, but you certainly, it was like more, it was a JRPG in like look and feel, but it was live action battling, and
right.
You can command your other teammates.
Right, exactly. And so you can do some of that here, but if you want to, you know, full on switch it up from, Alfin, who's got the sword, over to Law, who's like martial arts, hand-to-hand combat, or
Nice.
Xion, who's got the gun.
Yeah.
You can really bounce around, which is cool. And then there's these like super attacks that kind of like combo attacks that you can, team up once you charge a meter and really unleash some big devastation down on the enemies. So
Nice.
it really has been very fun from that standpoint too. And it's like real buttery smooth.
Oh, yeah.
Like just going from one thing to the other, and the animations and, the increased hardware on the new consoles and stuff, being able to handle a lot going on the screens has all been top notch.
That's really cool. And I love the fact that you said that you didn't know much about it. You just kind of based it off look of the cover, game art, because that is something that in this day and age we've lost a little bit. Like, you no longer go into a Blockbuster or something like that and just look at the wall of video game covers and pick a random one because you like the art, and know nothing about it, and you get it home and that's how you experience it.
Right.
Like we've totally lost that with gameplay demos and the advancement of the internet, really.
Yeah.
And just exposure and leaks and things like that. But to hear that kind of almost a bit of nostalgia to choosing a random game based off name and cover art and then still thoroughly enjoying it is so cool to me.
Yeah, it's pretty much how it's been. And, just to be fair, I do have two small negatives that have happened, but they've been pretty minor. The first is essentially, for whatever reason, the story early on just feels this need to just repetitively tell you like the main plot.
Yeah.
And it's like very apparent. So, after the first like 10 times it did that, you're kind of like, I get it, like there's this group of people, they've enslaved this group of people. Now there's it's like, you get it.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
And so it goes really a little overboard there in that first, maybe like 20% of the game. And then once it opened up, it seemed to get away from that once you had more characters and dialogue opportunities.
Yeah, like every NPC is telling you the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, it kind of was that way. And I was just like, man, they must just feel like I am not getting it here, So that was a little annoying, but it kind of ironed itself out as you made it through a little further into the game. And then I'm playing on Xbox Series X, and I have had maybe 3 to 4 game freezes. Typically when I'm going like to load into a new area or fast travel, and that's been about it. Like no bugs, no hitching, no glitching, nothing like that. It's just been occasionally I had a few moments where it would like get locked on the load screen.
Yeah.
And I'd have to shut it down and restart. So nothing overly impactful, but I do highly suggest, if anybody goes out and gets this game, plays this game, which I highly recommend, I just suggest, saving early and often.
Yeah.
So that way you can always just go right back to pretty much where you were before you try to do that fast travel or something like that. So
for sure. And you can save whenever you want, right?
Save whenever you want.
Yeah, that's nice then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like the classic JRPG where you come up on a save spot and you're like, all right, what is coming my way? Because save spots usually mean doom on the other side of that wall.
And how many hours am I going to have to play before I find the next save spot?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I've lost many a Mario RPG like save files that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet though. That's pretty awesome. I can't get over just because I remember when you picked up this game, like we hadn't talked about it at all.
Mm-mm.
So it's fantastic to hear that a random purchase just kind of on a whim has been so good.
Yeah, it definitely has me wanting to go back and take a look at some of the older Tales games, because if they're all in this same level of, quality,
Sure,
that same ballpark, right, then I think that I could find probably a number of them that I would enjoy, all the way back to the retro area.
Yeah.
So I might do that here. That might be kind of my new thing as I have those down moments in between games, right?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to wrap it up here because, now that we've hit October, it's like we've got a number of games coming out over the next couple of months. So trying to get it completely done so I can turn my attention to some of the others that are coming.
It's a hot and heavy quarter 3 into quarter 4 as far as AAA video gaming goes.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, it's kind of been our big complaint about the next gen era is there just haven't been release after release, it's just been like peppered, got
Right.
maybe Astros up front, and Ratchet and Clank was cool. Deathloop sounded like good, but now we're about to get a string of like, I want 3 games that crush me back to back to back. Like,
Exactly.
that's what I'm looking for.
Well, anything else you want to highlight here before we jump into our main topic?
Well, I'll talk about it real briefly because I've only put about 5 or 6 hours into it, but I have been playing Kena Bridge of Spirits, and it has been an absolute beautiful game to play. Just the graphic work is remarkable, a lot like Ratchet and Clank. It's got an animated feel, so it's not going for a realistic look. Like it's meant to look slightly cartoony.
It looked like a Pixar, like a Toy Story type, like what you get in those high-end animated films right now.
Oh yeah, and I will say that is exactly what it feels like, and the story that it tells. Like, and that's really how I described it the other night when I was playing it. I was like, this is kind of like playing a Pixar movie to some extent with the story that it's telling.
Very cool.
Because you're Kena, and she's a spirit guide, and I get this vibe that you're helping spirits that have died but have not been able to move on into the afterlife, so you help them progress. Some of that is to be totally cleared up. There's a little bit of mystery to it as far as if that's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
Like, everything they've shown me so far is like, okay, yeah, that's what's happening, but they haven't blatantly said, like, that's the job of a spirit guide just yet. But all around, combat's been a lot of fun, and I think it's had a few puzzles, and the combat instances have been pretty cool as far as, like, the bosses, and there's a little bit of a challenge to it, so it's not quite like Souls level difficulty, but like you definitely have to fight a boss maybe once or twice, figure out the timing and the right spots, because you have a bow and arrow, you have a staff, but you have limited arrows, so you really have to like balance. And if I'm going to expend my 5 arrows, I have to make sure that I hit my target, because if you don't hit your target, then you have to go through a whole string of like, all right, dodges and dips and blocks before you get an opportunity to hit that target again.
Oh, they like recharge.
Yeah, the arrows recharge, but you'll be fighting like big tree monsters, and they'll have these like little yellow sacks on them, and you got to line up your shots, and you got to make sure that you hit them.
Critical areas or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
It's not, like I said, there's some challenge to it, but it's not overwhelming. But there have been a boss or two where I've died like 2 or 3 times before I've really gotten the rhythms down. So all in all, like it was well priced. It was $40. I know that when IGN did the review, they said it was about 9 hours. So me having put in somewhere to 4 to 6 hours in it already, maybe I'm about halfway through, but it feels like there might be some replayability if I bump up the difficulty and come into these boss battles a little differently. But the little companion mechanic is cool. You can ask them to like pick things up and move things around, and that helps with the puzzles. So at a $40 price tag, and I'm sure it will go on sale and maybe come down to like 30 or 20, I would totally recommend anybody scoop it and have a fun weekend, or get 2 or 3 weekends out of it, depending on how much time you have to game.
Yeah, I was considering it, but like I said, I already picked up Tales, and then when I saw the length of it, that's what kind of pushed me back, even though everything was pretty positive, about it from what I read.
Yeah.
So I kind of resigned it, just given the timing and everything, that it'd be more of either a on sale purchase and during like a downtime, or maybe it'll hit PS Plus, or something like that. So, but glad to hear that it seems like your experience is kind of lining up with what the reviews were.
Oh yeah, and for sure. I was attracted to this game because it's third person. Like, I'm just addressed it in the past. I'm just not a big first person gamer.
Right.
Like, and so Deathloop was out there and it looked exciting, but there was, like we just addressed, there's this lull in big games right now. And so when this one got released in the September timeframe, and the look was good, the combat seemed interesting, and the $40 price tag on a third person kind of action puzzler adventure type deal, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I committed a long time ago to doing it, and it is not disappointed at all.
Well, I think the other thing to call out there is, I forget the name of the company that made it, but I believe it's their very first like real game. And so even though it is on the shorter side, it seemed like they really kind of proved that they can do the animation, they can do combat, almost like a prologue to maybe another game that they'll come out that might be more of that full, 40-hour whatever type AAA experience. But it seemed like a good breakthrough for them, so.
Oh, yeah, and the developer publisher was Ember Lab.
Ember Lab, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, they've definitely piqued my interest to see what's going to happen moving forward. This game being so short, I could very much see it becoming like a series of some kind.
There you go. Yeah.
Like, and it's done enough so far that I've enjoyed it, and I would certainly probably pick up a DLC if something came out.
Very cool.
Well, as always, we hope that you've enjoyed hearing a little bit about what we've been up to lately. Between video games and new pups, life certainly has a way of keeping it entertaining. We'll take a quick break for a small, shameless plug, and then dive into some reptilian ninja action.
Hey, fellow geeks, did you know that the GeeK KetchUp podcast has a merchandise store? Go to geekketchuppodcast.com and click merch in the menu to add official GK shirts, stickers, and more to your inventory. Stay saucy, you nerds.
And we're back. And let's dive into the meat and potatoes of this chapter. And that is, of course, we all have these moments in our lives that impact who we are, our personality, our interests, and in some cases, how we see the world. These moments can be big or small, and Chris and I wanted to start exploring those moments that shaped our love of geekery. They could be movies, video games, wrestling matches, albums, television shows, all of the above. So we're trying something new and doing deep dives into our geek-defining moments. To kick it off, we started with a movie that both of us grew up watching over and over and over. That movie is none other than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. We'll dive into the movie itself, the first time we saw it, and how it impacted us, as well as what we think of it now. Maybe it's an annual rewatch for one of us, and maybe we're still quoting it constantly. We're not saying this is one of our favorite movies of all time, but it is hard to deny how important it was to us as kids. So let's get into it. TMNT2, The Secret of the Ooze, came out in March of 1991 as a direct follow-up to the 1990 record-breaking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The sequel had a much more comedic feel to it, but at its core, it was still a martial arts-based action flick. Directed by Michael Pressman and produced and distributed by New Line Cinema and 20th Century Fox. Of course, the movie was based around the comic book IP created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. Following the adventures of the four enhanced turtles, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael, along with their father/master, Master Splinter, and friend April O'Neil. This movie introduced a new character in the fighting pizza guy Kino as well. So Chris, before we dive into our personal connection to the movie, I thought it'd be cool to highlight a few fun facts around the film that just kind of shape the story and a few other things that are going on. So the first one I have here is because of the success, the massive record-breaking success of the first Turtles movie, which at the time was the highest grossing independent film ever. They knew that they were going to make a sequel. And the budget for the sequel was crazy because it was $25 million.
Wow.
Double the original independent film.
Yeah, that's a lot. New Line at the time was a pretty small company. I mean, they were making movies, but it wasn't a Warner Brothers or MGM.
Oh, yeah,
about
for
some
sure.
of the other companies
Yeah.
at the time that were like massive. So that is a pretty big budget for 1990, 1991.
Yeah, that is so huge. And they just wanted to pump like more money into this IP because it was arguably the height of Turtles fandom.
Yeah.
Like in 1990 they sold 100 million toy units.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were trying to capitalize on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise as much as they could.
And I had a bunch of them.
Yeah, oh yeah. I had a bunch of them as well, like, and that is just everything. They were totally capitalizing on the TMT franchise as far as toys and merchandise, anything they could possibly do. TMNT, they were like, we want to do it. So the movie followed suit. We're like, this is going to be a hit. We're gonna make bukus of bucks off of it. And in fact, they did. It was still financially successful as a movie. It was the 13th highest grossing film domestically that year.
Wow.
But unfortunately, like it didn't get the best critic reviews because of its comedic departure from the original movie. And that has always kind of been the tale of two stories when it comes to TMNT. Like there's the comic book, which is gritty and dark.
Yeah, it's more noir. Like the first film was like very noir at times.
Yeah, yeah. And then you get the animated series, which are very comedic and lighthearted and meant for kids to pair with those toys.
Right.
All of that totally lines up as far as like you could see a movie studio, an independent movie maker wants to do that gritty, dark version. And then once a larger studio finds out about it, they're like, well, yeah, but we need this to appeal to a wider audience so we can make more of that moolah.
Well, and what's interesting about that, and I was thinking about this a little bit during the rewatch, you know, TMNT was definitely geared in a lot of ways towards kids, like overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, like broadening the horizon was what they did with making the movies, because I would thought that would have almost been more about going after some of the non-child audiences, you know, so like teens, maybe young adults and things like that to expand. Because if you look at the movies, I mean, they did a really good job of combining the real world and these crazy turtles and Splinter and just the absurdity that comes with it.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something that movie companies really struggled with back then. You know, now you see Marvel and it's like the movies are made where like Iron Man's real and they're just in New York and stuff. It's just like a thing.
Yeah, very easy.
But back then it really wasn't that way. And, you know, you usually either got one or the other. So I think they really did a good job with that.
Absolutely. Like it's either like not hard sci-fi, but like hard sci-fi where graphics and CGI and it's totally unrealistic, or like it's The Departed, which is, you know, everything is practical.
Right, exactly. And here, I mean, like, you really had this situation where they just took giant turtles. I mean, the puppetry is just amazing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which helps.
Jim Henson. Yeah.
Jim Henson.
Jim Henson, you know, Muppets creator Jim Henson and his entire studio is involved in all of this. So the puppeteering is the best in the business.
Exactly. And so, I mean, you watch it and it really feels like they're just there in the real world. I'm sure as a kid, I probably thought that turtles were real walking around New York City because you watch the movies and that's how it appears. You know, that's the quality they did.
Oh, yeah.
That early on, you know, 30 years ago.
30 years. Yeah. 30 years not necessarily to the day, but to the year. It's kind of wild what they accomplished. And along the same lines, you know, of trying to find that wider appeal, they definitely retooled the second movie and actually got away from using the weapons that each of the turtles use. And it's interesting to kind of like research and find that out, because I'm not sure I noticed that back in the day, that in the first movie, they totally used their weapons, the swords, the sais, the nunchucks, and the bow staff. And in the second movie, it's actually mostly hand to hand.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it as I was watching it, but now that you say that, you're very right. And I'm thinking that really the only main weapon that you see at least once or more is Donatello's staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
Yeah, because you always kind of think, well, Leonardo has swords. Why isn't he just lobbing people's arms off?
That's true. And when they use them in different ways. Like there was actually a moment where Leo has the swords out, but he stabs them into the roof.
Yeah.
And then uses them as like an elevation to kick somebody. So yeah, I didn't think about it from that until you just said that. That's a really interesting little factoid.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And well, I'm thinking of Michelangelo, the one time he actually uses nunchucks. They're not nunchucks, they're sausage links.
Yeah, they're sausage links.
But it was a very, you know, weird switch that they did that, and it went along with a couple other switches. They had a few actor replacements from the first movie to the second movie. I think the most notable one is April O'Neil was obviously recast from Paige Turco over to Judith Hoag, or excuse me, Paige Turco took over for Judith Hoag. And what's interesting there is Judith actively got out of her contract. She didn't want to come do the second movie. which I thought was, like,
Poor bet.
yeah, bad move, bad move. But they brought in a couple new voice actors. Obviously, they replaced Donatello's voice actor, which was Corey Feldman in the first movie, legendary 80s actor, but he was going through some personal trouble at the time. And so he was removed. Shredder himself was recast. And so the guy behind Shredder was recast on a couple of those close-ups. And then they debuted Keno, a lot of, in a sense, to replace Casey Jones.
Right, yeah.
And I've got to believe that has everything to do with that weapons-based idea.
It could be, yeah, because Casey was so focused, like he was so reliant on the hockey stick or the bat, whatever he had at the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, so you had to make that switch because you can't have Casey Jones fighting without some sort of weaponry. Like, he was never a hand-to-hand person, like martial arts designed the way they were. Another fun fact about Keno there himself, the actor behind Keno, Ernie Reyes Jr., doubled as Donatello in the first movie. He was the guy in the suit.
Oh.
And the producers liked him so much in the first movie that they found a way to get him into the second movie.
Very cool, very cool.
All of that is just very interesting. Like, all these little dynamics to this movie that just meant so much to us and so much to pop culture, as far as, like, really the TMNT, like, Zengeist and how popular they were at the time, that they'd make these grand sweeping changes and people would choose to leave the project.
Right, yeah.
That's always so surprising to me. You hear about several of these people that chose to leave the project for one reason or another. I'm like, but how could you do that looking at the toy sales?
Yeah, I mean, but you got to think too, back at that point, there was definitely kind of like a stigma in Hollywood around these types of films. I'm sure that there was a lot of folks that looked at them as, this is the end of my career, or I'm not a serious actor, whatever it may be, just because of the content and how they were made, and, the styling of a lot of these films. I'm thinking about, some of the others, like the Batmans that came out post Michael Keaton, and like Spawn from the 90s, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it was probably some of that. You never know, but I could see at least some people, if they were trying to go do other things or whatever, like, maybe Turtles isn't the best thing for my career,
Yeah, very true, very true.
But in reality, it would have, like, made them icons in some ways, like, the Turtles are definitely the stars, but you always remember April and Keno, and some of the guy who played Casey Jones went on to do a lot in Hollywood, things like that.
For sure. Yeah, why would you not try to take something that's going to propel you to multiple fans across multiple ages?
But yeah, the only other character I feel like is worth calling out, just because I had never noticed this until my recent rewatch, was Cheese Pizza. And most people are going to be like, well, what do you mean, pizza and the Turtles, right? Of course. But this was the first time I have ever noticed that the first, like, 2 to 3 minutes of this film, TMNT2, is just every single person in New York eating pizza. Whether you're walking down the street, sitting at a restaurant, the cops arresting guys, they're all eating pizza.
Oh, yeah.
I had never noticed that until this rewatch, that there's like 2,000 slices of cheese pizza in the first 2 to 3 minutes of this movie.
Oh, yeah, the whole opening sequence is just New Yorkers. I thought that myself. I was like, man, they're just really driving home that New York pizza is the pizza.
Right. And it makes total sense, but I hadn't watched this film in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
And definitely not with, like, the full adult brain on, if that makes sense, And so kind of looking at it more from just the more mature movie fan. I don't know. I don't want to sound like an asshole here, but you know what I mean? Like, just the different, more mature brain, more experience, critiquing movies, whatever it could be. Like, I definitely noticed a few things on this rewatch that I don't think I'd ever paid attention to before.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you pick up little side comments or things that, you just get glossed over when you're a kid because you're so excited just for the Turtles themselves and the action. Yep. And then, you're right, adult brain, you look at it and you're like, well, that was cheeky. Like, For sure, for sure. Well, like, it's a perfect little segue to get into this personal connection that we've always had with this movie, and as we saw it growing up, and how we saw it growing up. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about that the first time, or maybe I don't know if you distinctly remember the first time that you saw this movie, but I'm certain that you have memories of watching this movie as a kid.
Absolutely. I don't think I could narrow it down to the specific moment when I watched it the first time. I mean, we were 4 or 5 when
Yeah.
this movie came out. I don't think it was in theaters. Not that I could remember, but
Yeah.
my memories of this movie are way more around the big, thick, puffy white VHS case that
Yep.
it came in, and it was one of the book styles that actually opened up, like full protection for this cassette that's in there.
Oh,
you know?
okay. Yeah. You had a different copy of the VHS than I did.
Oh yeah, see, we had the one. You know how they made the two different styles? There was
Yeah.
just the sleeve, but then there were like the real deal ones that came in like the bookcase.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that's the one we had, but it was the white with the whole movie logo on the front and everything.
Yeah. See, and I had just the sleeve. So
Ah,
I had the white, but it was just the VHS tape itself.
yeah.
And the little sleeve, all those book ones were like the Disney collection.
Yeah, that was the style. And my mom was kind of obsessed with Disney VHSs. I actually think at one point she had like every one that was out.
Yeah.
And so maybe that was what it was because we actually had them on a bookshelf as an entertainment center.
Yeah,
And
yep.
so maybe that was it, was she sprung for the extra to keep it consistent.
So it didn't just stick out like a sore thumb. But no, I totally agree. It is the VH copy back in the day. And that's the exact same memory I have, like just wearing out that almost a DVD copy, that VHS copy,
Oh yeah.
please rewind at the end, the whole deal. Be kind, rewind.
Right.
Yep, hit and play, playing it back, rewinding it, playing it back through for sure.
It was probably my version, if not, I guess ours, and we could say, of like Frozen. Like you hear the
Yeah.
people tell the stories about how their kid just won't stop watching Frozen. Like I've heard my mom talk about how it was nonstop Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for me at that time.
For sure, for sure.
And I'll take it one step further because I actually reached out to Mom.
Yeah.
So shout out to Mama Heck out there. And I asked her for some quotes. So I'm getting her on the record here just to legitimize, the impact that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had on my life back then. So I'll run off a few of them here for you. First one was, I remember you were obsessed with them.
Yeah.
I remember you having a birthday party and everything was the Turtles. I think that was your third birthday. So I think actually I was a Turtles fan prior to Secret of the Ooze coming out.
Nice. Yeah.
I remember you had the shirts, the underwear, the Turtles were on all of them, the bed sheets. I remember I had to fuss you many times over going up to people and doing some karate move or some shit like that around the house on other people.
Some
Verbatim
shit
quote.
like that.
Verbatim quote. I'm pretty sure you had every toy that I could get that was made about them. And the last one here is you would run around yelling cowabunga and jumping off the sofa.
Damn right. You're damn right. That is amazing. Oh, shout out to Mama Heck. That is so good. That is so good. Oh, man.
Yeah, when we were putting this together, I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to go back. I was like, I know my mom remembers some of this stuff. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know I had the toys, and you mentioned the bed sheets. I definitely know I had the bed sheets on my little twin size bed when I was a kid. Like, that was for sure. They were the white ones with the circle logo.
Oh,
I
okay,
distinctly remember those bed sheets, and having like the Technodrome. That was one of the toys that I absolutely had, was the Technodrome. And then for me,
that would open up like Mad Max style.
yeah,
Was it that one?
on the inside.
Yeah.
And then the main turtle toy that I had was the one that you could switch. So it would be like a regular looking turtle, and then you could pop the shell up and then rotate the arms and the head to turn it into a ninja turtle.
Nice. Yeah. I definitely have always looked back on this era of the Turtles as my favorite era of the Turtles.
Yeah.
Some of the newer designs, like some of the animated cartoons and stuff, like they've been fine. But for me, that dark green, the rounded head, just like this style that came from the movies and a lot of those action figures that were like, that is the Ninja Turtles to me.
Yeah.
But I'll have to go see if I can and get my mom to look for this. But I know that I was a Ninja Turtle at least once for Halloween
Yeah.
when I was young. And it was like early 90s, like crappy Halloween costumes where it was like just like the strap on paper mask,
The plastic face. It's all right. So I know, and I'll have to dig as well because I also know that I was a Ninja Turtle like for Halloween. And there's a picture and I know it exists. It's in my head right now that of me trick-or-treating in Myersville with all the neighbors and I am a Ninja Turtle. And if I remember correctly, I'm dressed as Raphael, even though he's not my favorite turtle, but I also might just be dressed as like when they were all just wore red before they had colors.
Well, and I'm sure it was so popular that like if you didn't get there quick, everybody wanted Michelangelo. I know as a kid,
Yeah.
Michelangelo was number one. But yeah, I'm sure that it would be funny to go back and see which ones we had. We should try and find those and put them out if we can on the social.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will say Michelangelo was not my favorite as a kid, though. My favorite as a kid was Donatello. Like, I've been a Donatello OG since day one.
Yeah, that's good.
The bow staff for the win.
I can feel that. I know for sure that Michelangelo was my favorite back in the day. Like, I can remember that, early memory. But as I grew older, Donatello became, I think that happens for a lot of people because he's like that good blend. Leo and Mike, he's kind of more of that blend, so...
Yeah, he can be goofy, and this movie kind of highlights that a little bit, that he's serious at times, he's good at martial arts when he needs to be, but he has no problem goofing around with Michelangelo. That is showcased very well in this movie.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, our love of the video games going back to NES, SNES for the Turtles is well documented. We don't even have to get into that so much, but... I remember regularly watching the cartoon, like as it came out, local Fox station, whatever, in the afternoons.
Oh yeah, Fox Kids, man.
Yeah, it was definitely a big time thing at that point. And I really just thought I'd call out that this was like the perfect way to kick off this new chapter idea. Because when I think back, and it wasn't just for this, like I think about it regularly. When I think back to some of the earliest memories that I have, that, from being 4 or 5 years old, you really dig into the mind and get those foggy, hazy impressions that are still out there, right?
Sure.
Ninja Turtles is up there. Like, it's on the short list of things that I, remember the most.
Yeah.
Even more so than moments with family and things like that. So it might be the original IP that I ever geeked out on.
Oh wow! Okay.
Like I think it's in that territory from the timing, the age, and the whole 9 yards. Like it might be my original fandom if I'm thinking, back to it. It's like that, and I remember Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
and then maybe Power Rangers a little bit later.
Power Rangers, Power Rangers is one that I think for me would compete. Because I remember watching the show and having like and Ninja Turtles to some extent as well. Like you go and you buy the toy weapons.
Yeah.
And you like run around the neighborhood and you just have like fake battles and fake like ninja fights. And so one and the same there, like as a young kid, that's what I did. So that's how those memories got formed. And I'm right there with you. I remember like maybe trying to like kung fu kick my brother when he wasn't looking. Like you said, your mom said you jumped off the couch and yelled cowabunga. Like I'm positive that I tried to jump off the couch and deliver a flying sidekick to him at a certain age. But that's too good. That's too good.
Well, I'm thinking about when we were that young. I mean, we were the target audience, for that. And then thinking about some of those other IPs, like Power Rangers, like I remember the like debut pilot episode premiere of Power Rangers.
Okay.
Like not like definitively, but that first season of Power Rangers.
That first
we were
season of Power-
kids,
yeah,
like we were
yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah, like that was us.
Yeah, we were that target market.
We were that target market. Well, it's true. Like, it's like going back to the movie, that's like my fondest memories of that is like as a kid, I loved that action mixed with the comedy. And we said we never noticed the lack of weapons or anything like that. So we were that target audience, and it absolutely sucked me right into that commercial hype that they were going for.
Yeah, who knows how much money we forced our parents to spend on Ninja Turtle related paraphernalia and everything,
Yeah, like everything
Apparel.
else. Yeah, just apparel. Because it was top to bottom. It was shirts, like you said, shirts, underwear, toys, bed sheets, like the works. And
Yeah.
really looking at how the Turtles got released, they were pushing out variants. Like, I'm going to talk about the original variant of a specific like IP. Turtles nailed it because there was Turtles in Time, there was Samurai Turtles, there was Star Trek Turtles.
Right.
Like they ran the gamut as far as the different like blending of IPs with the Turtles.
And I will say, it kind of had me thinking here, though, too, on the flip side of like how I've always loved the Turtles. Like I've never turned my back on them, if you put it that way per se.
Yeah.
But as I did get older, I didn't stick with like the following. So, for me, I've not read any of the comics, haven't followed the more recent shows regularly. I've played a couple of the games as they've come out.
Yeah.
But it did have me kind of thinking that even though it's always been such a part of my life from that standpoint, like it's a fond, nostalgic memory and I still enjoy them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same as some of the other IPs that I've picked up a little bit later in life and have carried a little bit closer with me, through adulthood. So I was kind of like, maybe I need to circle back and really kind of check out some more stuff, dive back into it a little bit,
Dive back into it. I can say in the comic book realm, The Last Ronin is coming out right now, and it is phenomenal. But in the video game realm, there's that new TMNT Shredder's Revenge.
Yes.
That's set to come out in 2021, but I don't know when. And it's going to be a throwback to the, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on NES and Turtles in Time and the Manhattan Project and all of those games that came out in that 90s era. And we've talked about it like privately and then also in the group chat. That's a day one for me.
Oh, take all my money. I don't care.
Take all my
money
money
on that one.
Even if it is that can be a side-scrolling Switch game that is nothing. I'd still pay $60. I don't care. Yeah, you're right. Take all my money. Take all my money because there's nothing more than I want out of that. So we'll dip into having watched it now. I think we both recently did some rewatches of this movie, and I'll say first and foremost on my rewatch before we get away from the VHS version too far is I missed not having those trailers at the beginning of my rewatch. And I don't know if you remember the trailers at the beginning of the VHS tape.
No, I don't know if I remember that. Was that a thing?
It was absolutely a thing. Like in the 80s or the 90s into the 2000s, there used to be trailers for like either advertisings for like restaurants or other movies that were going to be coming to the theater soon. Like when you put the VHS tape in, or your memory probably serves when you put the DVD in and it starts and then you can hit like menu to skip it.
Yeah.
I definitely remember those.
Yeah, I don't remember commercials so much on the VHSs, but now that you got my brain thinking, I'm almost like, well, when you're young, your parents are doing it for you. And so they're probably fast forwarding directly to where it needs to be, or you learn like the exact place to cut off the rewind. And then, later on, if it didn't become a thing, but then switch to DVDs. So that's crazy.
Yeah, but I missed the trailers. And I bring this up because I remember the trailers so fondly.
Whoa.
And it is, and of course I did some double checking to make sure that my memory served me correct. But I was like, man, I remember there being a trailer for a Hulk Hogan movie at the beginning of the VHS tape. And I went and I looked, and it was
really.
So the beginning trailers on the VHS were a Burger King Kids Club commercial,
Okay.
which I don't know if you remember that. It's the one where like the
Yeah.
little boy steps up to the counter and he orders, and then like the cartoon characters make the meal for him.
Yes, yeah, I do remember that. Yes.
And then there was another trailer for a movie called Step Kids, which is just a run-of-the-mill 90s movie. We won't get into that one. But the big one was for the movie Suburban Commando with Hulk Hogan and Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a gem right there. That was like when he was doing like Thunder in Paradise and like some of those kinds of things, probably. Like
Oh,
some
yeah.
of those, like kind of military. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh yeah. And it just when I played it, like I said, I remembered these trailers, and then when I booted it up, I ended up watching it on Amazon, like Amazon Prime, and I was like, man, I miss these like silly trailers at the beginning of the movie. Like we got that opening sequence as they go around New York and eating pizza, like we said, but I'm like, man, I want those trailers there, like just to give it the full experience.
You know, that's funny, but kind of in the same vein, what actually kind of got me with a little bit of nostalgia was just the New Line Cinema music and logo coming in with like the do 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 do.
Oh, dude, just you doing that now gave me chills.
But you know, like, is that? I mean, you'd see that stuff like every single time you'd watch something, and I don't even know if New Line's around anymore. Maybe, but.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen. If they are, they've completely changed their intro. Or they probably got incorporated by somebody else, because
Sure.
I also noticed like the 20th Century Fox thing booted up and it said like an AOL Time Warner company, and I was like, well, that doesn't exist anymore. Like
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that company still exists, but not that company.
Yeah. But like even the little things like that were definitely just sucking me back 20, 30 years, and you know, just stuff that we used to see so much
Yeah.
in
yeah.
the 90s that is just gone pretty much.
Oh yeah. I said, and up front in that opening title sequence, the music, the font, like the orange block font that's popping up that you literally saw in every 90s movie, like intro. It was all just out the gate, just boom, 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 hitting me in the feels.
I was like, well, I'm a sucker for that 80s, 90s style movie intro where you get the same, you know, pan shot of the city that the movie's going to take place in.
Yeah.
And then you get that, you know, synth music going.
Yeah.
Like that just like is movies to me. Like,
Yeah, you got to get a skyline. I want numbers. I want statistics on how many movies that came out between 1985 and 1995 that opened with a skyline shot.
It's pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Every movie had to open that way.
Every movie. And even that whole opening sequence with Kino and Roy's Pizza, and he gets on the little moped and he finds the guys, you know, robbing the store. It was very reminiscent of Tom Holland's Spider-Man when he sees the guys robbing the bank with the Avengers masks on.
Yeah.
Like I kind of had those vibes, and he goes in and he tries to fight him. He gets overwhelmed and the turtles show up. And when they show up, they get the big bounce jump and the logo hits. Oh man, like it's so good, so good. Like it instantly took me back, and I instantly like fell back into being a 6-year-old kid.
Oh yeah. Well, and the sound effects in the movie are so good for that, because I don't know if I'd say they're exactly from the arcade game, but they pretty much sound like they're from the arcade game.
Yeah.
And even though it's real live action fighting and things going on, like to me, I picked up on that was that the sound effects really felt like they just pulled them straight out of the games and, you know, merged them into this world. So like even when Kino's doing kicks, or especially when the turtles come in, you know, I immediately, it was another one, like kind of like the pizza thing. It was another one of those things as an adult that I picked on quickly, compared to as a kid where you're just not even paying attention or you don't understand. You know, it's like magic.
And like shout out to the Foley artist there. That's just going next level with, you know, how they do that back then. Well, how they do it now, and also how they did it back then. We're watching the movie and making the sound effects with little whatever pieces, equipment, and material they can. But it's so true. And that opening combat scene. In all of the combat scenes, like I really, really enjoyed them, and we've touched on it a few times already. Like the lack of weapons being used did not bother me. I thought maybe having like researched that and seen that, I thought, oh well, I'm gonna rewatch this movie, and I'm going to start noticing that more, and it's going to bother me that, oh, why aren't they using their weapons? But it didn't. I still thought the combat and the fight scenes were well choreographed and just right on par.
Well, I think the reason why that is that if you think about pretty much every fight scene in this movie, there is like some zany kind of theme almost happening. So, like
Yeah.
in the opening one, they're in that store with like where Donatello, replaces himself with the clown, and they're
Yeah.
using the different props around. And so they're always using items like that. To some extent, but in TGRI when they're doing the football plays,
Yeah.
and they're calling out. So there's like almost always something to add to the combat. It's just not necessarily weapons, like traditional lethal weapons.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that is a good point, especially in the TGRI kind of scene where they're rolling around on the chair and they've got like, oh, the video games, like, where do you put the quarter? Like that
Right,
whole
yeah.
environment is very goofy. Or like the junkyard just opens itself up to having all sorts of weird stuff like car doors and spare parts.
There's a lot of environment use.
Oh yeah, it's really, really good. Environment use is a great way to put that. Like they replace the weapons use with environmental type pieces, or when they're on the roof, or in the April's apartment when they're goofing around in April's apartment. There's the mop and the
Right.
buckets, and they're jumping over the couch, like all sorts of stuff.
Actually, the one time you see Raph use his sai is to catch the piece of pizza that Don or Mike, throw at him, and he dives over the couch like an end zone touchdown catch. But he catches it on the side. That's like the only time you see it.
Yeah, the only time. I think the other time he has them in his hands, but they're like knife side down.
Oh yeah, and
And he's just kind of using them as like extra support. Like, nah, man, go knife side up and like stab some Foot Clan members, like all up in it. No, it was still, even the comedic pieces to it, it was still funny to me. Like I really thought that some of that would get worn out, and it just didn't. Like it hit all the right notes, and I was like, man, I don't know if it's nostalgia or if this movie is somehow holding up. But you read a lot of the critics' reviews of it, and they bash it for all of these reasons. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, no, that's why I still like this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it might be some nostalgia that helps, but and then if you really wanted to get crazy critical, then sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, but this is not the kind of movie that anybody really is trying to be overly critical about.
Right.
Because it just wasn't ever meant for that. But yeah, I think it absolutely held up. I actually put down here that there was not a moment, like I said, I hadn't watched this movie in 10 plus years. Don as an adult, the whole 9 yards. There was not a moment of watching this movie that had me disinterested or not entertained. I was just like I was back I watched it attentively,
Yeah.
from start to finish when I threw it on for this rewatch. And I mean, it has action, comedy, drama, grounded effects, master puppetry, science fiction, coordinated dances.
Coordinated dances, yeah.
I mean, it's got everything. It's like all these different genres, but they did kind of just capture lightning in a bottle or whatever you want to call it, and it just worked really well.
Oh yeah. Well, in 88 minutes in a total runtime, like it doesn't slow down. And I think that really
That's
plays
true.
into it, that it just keeps moving from one plot point to the next. Like there's no, and obviously with the puppeteering and the characters and the zaniness that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you're not going to want these deep dialogue moments, which I think is what happened in the third movie and why the third movie is not remembered so fondly.
Yeah.
Is they started to get into that emotional stuff, but they knew what they were doing, and that was my big takeaway when I rewatched it. I was like, look, this movie knew exactly what it wanted to be, and it went and it made itself into that, and I can't fault it. Like
Right.
it didn't try to be an award-winning movie. And it wasn't going out for anything like that. It was like, nope, this is our audience, this is our target, this is what we're going to do, and it works.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think it's also because they just committed to the spirit of the Turtles.
Yeah.
Everything was built around the Turtles, whether it was New York City or the enemies. I mean, anything. It was all just built around the Turtles, and I thought that watching back through, like, that was one of the big things I came away with, was that, to me, it stands up because the Turtles are a great IP, and they didn't try to bastardize or change that
Yeah.
spirit and the good stuff that they had built in the Turtles just to make it a movie so they could sell a bunch of tickets. Like, to me, it stands up because it kept the focus on the Turtles, and then everything else is, to the wayside because it's what you expect when you're reading or playing or watching Turtles.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, and to that point, and to the characters, I think we can't not mention Toka and Razor a little bit, like just as fun additions. I think one of the fun facts that I'll draw back on is that Peter Laird denied them the use of Bebop and Rocksteady.
Oh, okay.
And they specifically created Toka and Razor for the movie because he didn't want them to be used. So he straight up denied it and said, nope.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Because in the end, it's a little longer of a quote where he actually admits that he didn't like Bebop and Rocksteady because he thought they were kind of like one-note stupid characters.
Ah, okay.
And so he just didn't like them because he felt like they just constantly had the same shtick in the animated series.
Yeah.
And so he was hoping that they would go in a different direction for the movie. But what's interesting to me is I don't think I ever picked up on the fact that Toka and Razor weren't like Bebop and Rocksteady. Like, I knew that they weren't. Obviously, like, you can't have a rhino and then suddenly it be like a snapping turtle.
Sure.
Or like a wolf. But like, Toka and Razor fit right into that universe for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there was definitely other villains like in the games that you could say, like especially with Razor. Like I'm thinking about like the mechanical turtle, evil turtle that you fight. Like there are some other villains that so it fit perfectly. Like I wouldn't have ever thought any different, since it just seemed like they were right in line with what you would expect the enemies for the Turtles to be.
Oh, for sure. And then the other small change, and I don't know if you picked up on this one, was the TGRI switched from TGRI from TCRI.
Mm-mm.
So in the comics, it's TCRI, the Techno Comic Research Institute. And in the movie, it's the Techno Global Research Industries. And it was but kind of along these same lines, like they took the core IP, tweaked some small things, and still made it work. And it's because TCRI is like a extraterrestrial thing. And
so
they didn't want to take them. Yeah, they grounded it a little bit, but still made it work.
Yeah.
They made it work. They made these small changes, but to your point, they kept the heart of what makes the Turtles so interesting and so great to us all there.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe one of the last things that we just absolutely have to call out is you have that just award-winning scene with Vanilla Ice.
Oh yeah. Oh, the award-winning. That is the greatest musical performance in any movie ever. Fight me.
Ninja, rap.
Ninja. And the dance. Now, obviously, I'm kidding. It is not the best musical ever, but that song is so catchy. Actually, I thought about this on the rewatch. I was like, I think Go Ninja Go is my favorite Vanilla Ice song.
Oh, it's definitely up there. Yeah.
Like, I know there's Ice Ice Baby. There's a couple others.
There's two.
But there's two. There's two. Yeah. It's a long list. There's two. But Go Ninja Go over Ice Ice Baby for me.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I love that song. I mean, in high school, I could do the dance. Like, that was a thing.
It was a thing.
In our group of friends. I'll admit it. I don't know if I could do it anymore.
Yeah.
But,
Might throw your back out. Might throw your back out.
Might throw the back out, yeah.
Nah, but that whole fight scene, and actually dating back to something you already said, like they made the fight scenes work. So the combat scene in the nightclub, like, didn't feel hokey or forced.
Even while it had a choreographed dance moment where the Turtles stop and start doing the ninja, rap dance. Yeah, but it just all worked, and I think that also shows a lot to how big the film was. I know we were talking about some people kind of getting off the project, but like Vanilla Ice was one of the biggest names in music in the early 90s. So just the fact that he was in this film, I think, also kind of showed a lot of the two, like, kind of crossing over pop culture there.
Oh, yeah. Like, and that's just like a great, reach out to him. A fun fact about Ninja Rap is, I guess, he wrote it in 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, like he has gone on record saying he wrote the song in a hotel room using just like an old drum machine.
Wow.
It said maybe took him about 30 minutes to write it, and the rest they completed in the studio.
That's catchy as hell, man, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Got good lyrics. I'm not going to go into them even though I could, you know?
No, it's just, yeah, it just, all the right spots, man. It hit all the right spots, all the right notes. I was a little upset with myself that it has been so long since I rewatched this movie, and inspired me to want to go rewatch the first one, because I think I'm going to appreciate the first one a lot more.
Yeah, I thought about it, didn't have the time, but there was a part of me that was like, I kind of want to hit the trilogy.
Yeah.
And even the third one, you know? Like,
Even
just
the
because
third,
it
yeah.
has been so long. So I'm with you there. This was a ton of fun. Really happy that we kind of took the moment to stop and revisit this because, you know, it's just such a cherished piece, but it's lost in time almost in a way, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up and everything else comes out and changes. So it was a great way to circle back there.
Absolutely. Just go back and hit all the nostalgic feels and really feel like a kid again. And, you know, life as an adult can get stressful and bog you down. And highly recommend going back, rewatching it, putting yourself in your six-year-old PJs and sitting on the couch, you know, sitting cross-legged on the couch and just watching a good old Turtles movie, catching all the fun little jokes and the combat scenes and seeing Super Shredder again and him all beefed up Kevin Nash under the mask.
Speaking of which, just one last thing is I did notice, I never thought about this before, but when Super Shredder becomes Super Shredder, it kind of cracked me up because it not only supersized his body,
Yeah.
which is pretty much like what we had seen with everything else with the Ooze was like, you know, organic matter
Right.
supersized,
Yeah.
but it supersizes his metal, his helmet, his armor,
helmet.
his whole suit, everything, you know?
Everything, yeah. Suddenly his armor, his helmet, all of it. That's the Ooze is crazy, man. You don't know what it's gonna do. You don't know the mutagen.
It's true.
It can affect all sorts of properties.
Well, no, it didn't break a ton of records or is even scored that highly on Rotten Tomatoes, but that doesn't mean that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 doesn't hold a special place in our geek hearts. Hit us up on social media to let us know what you think of Ninja Turtles 2, as well as any other classic geek movies, video games, or others that you'd like to have us break down. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this discussion, go ahead and smash the subscribe button so you never miss a chapter of GeeK KetchUp, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, be sure to follow GK on social media. You can find links to all of our accounts on the show notes below and on our website, geekketchuppodcast.com. There's even links to our merch store and Patreon if you'd like to support the show. But as always, remember to stay saucy, you nerds.